You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Does the thought of going back to school and teaching class lessons overwhelm you? Out of everything in my school counseling career, classroom lessons were one of the things I felt the least prepared for. We definitely didn't learn this in grad school. I definitely made some mistakes along the way, which is why I want to share what I've learned with you. Join me in my free live masterclass, 3 Mistakes Counselors Make in the Classroom and What to Do Instead, where I'll be teaching you how to keep students engaged, manage behaviors, and measure your lessons' effectiveness so you can feel prepared and confident going into this year's lessons. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/mistakes to save your seat. Hey there, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So today I want to talk to you about 4 mistakes that I made teaching classroom counseling lessons. Now, if you've already signed up for my masterclass, which I've been talking about, it's called 3 Mistakes Counselors Make in the Classroom. As you can see, there's a lot of mistakes being made here, right? And I'm the first to admit that I have done them all. So that's why I want to help you out. But yeah, today I want to talk to you about 4 things I did, mistakes that I made teaching classroom counseling lessons, and then, kind of some solutions that came out of those, some learning experiences. Maybe you find these relatable. Maybe you've never made these mistakes. I'm not sure. But I just thought it would be cool to be a little vulnerable and to share with you some of my own mess-up stories in an effort to help you. So the first thing that I did, a mistake, was I was stretched too thin on my schedule. So I would, schedule my counseling lessons last minute, and then I had my small groups and my individuals, and I didn't, put buffers in there like for travel time, or I didn't account for, I might need some time to take notes after this or prepare for this lesson. And I didn't prioritize my class lessons. I didn't schedule them first and then fill in my groups and individual sessions. So it was kind of a mess. It was all over the place, and I was always running around, like physically running around campus to get to things. You show up, you're all sweaty, you're like, hey, I'm here. That's not really the way you want to arrive, for your classroom counseling lesson. But I was trying to do it all. I was trying to help so many kids, and I had all the best intentions. But it definitely backfired. One story particularly, I've shared this on the podcast before, I think. It's like one of my most cringeworthy counseling stories. And there was a first grade teacher, a great teacher, but she was intimidating, not going to lie. At the school was a lot of seasoned teachers, and I was brand new. So it was very intimidating staff to work with. And we were meeting in a multi-purpose room. I wasn't going in her room, and she wasn't coming to my room. We were meeting in like a neutral space. That's where I was doing the classroom lessons at this school. And so I show up, and I had a crisis or something I'd dealt with. Something had happened. I'm late. And her kids are just standing outside. And of course, she has them like all in a line, and they're like singing a song, or she has total control over the kids. First grade. And I'm like late and all scrambled, whatever. I do the lesson, the whole time just feeling like not confident because not prepared and just flustered. And then she didn't sign up for any more class lessons. She was like, yeah, we're good on class lessons for my class. And I didn't get to teach them to those kids, which was such a bummer. And looking back, I should have found another way, to do that, to see them during a different time. Like, it's not fair that the kids didn't receive the instruction. But that just showed that she didn't want to work with me. She thought I was unprepared. And it was just a really messy situation. But what I've learned since then is that I need to schedule my lessons first, right? I've mentioned this in a previous episode. Schedule all of your class lessons first. Put some buffers in around those too, 10 or 15 minutes to prepare, to make even 30 minutes to make sure you can get there on time, especially if you're traveling to their classroom, because you get stopped in the hall. You know how it goes. But by scheduling your class lessons first and prioritizing them before you schedule small groups or individual sessions, then you can make sure that you're seeing all the classes, that you're on time, and that you're prepared. So that is something that I learned. Next up, I used to stress about scheduling every month. So I did not schedule in advance. And I would say, it's January. This is the topic for the month. What time do you guys want to do this? Again, it's that back and forth yo-yo of saying like, what time works for you? Oh, that doesn't work for me. Oh, what about this time? Oh, that doesn't work for me. Or in the hallway, teachers would come up to me and be like, hey, what time's my class lesson? I didn't have a good system in place, right? No one knew when I was coming, and I had to schedule it every month. It was taking up a lot of my time, and it wasn't efficient or effective. So what I've learned is now I schedule in advance. Now I'll schedule my class lessons using a sign-up system, or the teachers sign up for class lessons with me. I talked about this in the first week of July, if you want to go back and listen to that episode. And I send them a calendar invite with a follow-up reminder. So I, do this digitally, so they get a calendar invite that has automatic reminders, so no one forgets when their class lesson is. So they're not coming up to me in the hall, because they would ask me and I wouldn't know. I have 30 of them, right? So I'm like, well, I don't know when your class lesson is. But I felt flustered, unprepared, and not confident. And having a schedule in advance and using those calendar invites has fixed that problem. The next mistake I made was I would lose control of the class. So I had no classroom management tools. I didn't know how to redirect the kids. Once I had them in a breakout activity, I didn't know how to get them back. And I didn't have a developmentally appropriate understanding of how my class lessons needed to be different for different grade levels. So let me give you an example of that. I had this kindergarten class, and I was teaching self-control. It was like my first lesson of the year. And I went in and I was like, okay, guys, we played an activity. I think we did like the bubble activity where they can't pop the bubbles, so they show control. And that was fun. I loved that. Maybe we watched a video. I think there was a self-control video we watched. But then it was time for like the reflection piece, and I had these bubbles on paper, and I wanted them to write or draw in the bubbles a self-control strategy they would like to try. So this is kindergarten. I'm like, okay, guys, I passed out the papers. Now please write or draw a self-control strategy you would like to try. Well, that is way too complex for kindergarten, right? You guys are probably like shaking your heads like, seriously, girl? But I now know this. I did not know that at the time. Well, basically, most of them can't write yet. And then even drawing, it was just too many complex directions. Like, I don't think they knew what the word strategy meant, So I wasn't sure how to make these developmentally appropriate. So what I've learned since then is I've learned to keep control of the class, to use engaging lessons as a preventative classroom management strategy. Also, some of those other classroom management strategies that we've talked about in a previous episode earlier this month. I'll link to that in the show notes. But I talked all about classroom management strategies like having a class callback, having music to help, asking the teacher for tips, observing the teachers. There's a lot of ways that you can, learn classroom management strategies even if you don't have formal training in this. And then, like I said, being prepared with the developmental age. So ask the teacher for tips. Say, hey, this is kindergarten. I've never taught kindergarten before. Do you think this would be appropriate for this lesson? Can you look at this lesson and give me some feedback? That would take a little time out of their very busy schedule, but I'm sure you'll find a nice teacher who would do that for you, and it would go a really long way. Or you could ask another counselor who's already been in the game a little longer than you, right? And lastly, the last mistake that I made, well, I'm sure I made more than just these, but the last one I want to talk about today is I would scramble to plan a lesson. So I would be, overwhelmed because I had so many lessons to plan, and I had my small groups and I had my individual sessions, and I would just last minute be like, oh, I got a lesson in 30 minutes. Let me throw something together. And I would scramble to plan a lesson. I wasn't invested in it. I didn't, have a thoughtful lesson prepared, and the kids could sense that. So then they weren't invested in the lesson. They're not getting anything out of it. I didn't feel confident in teaching it. It was just a mess. So the main thing I've learned since then is to know yourself. So what I mean by this is to know your teaching style. Are you better at teaching in the mornings? Make sure you schedule your class lessons in the mornings. Or maybe you like to do your small groups and individual to start the day, then after lunch you'd rather deliver a class lesson. Know that when you're picking your available times for teachers to sign up for, right? You want to be the best version of yourself when you're teaching those class lessons, especially if it's something you struggle with. You want to be like your prime optimal self. So for example, something I did is I said, okay, no Mondays. I'm going to stop teaching class lessons on Mondays. I'm not even going to offer it as a time for them to sign up. And I did that for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I love to travel and I was always going out of town on the weekends, little, trips to a different part of the state or something. Not always something major, but it was still, you get home Sunday night, you got to unpack, you got to do laundry, you got to meal prep for the week. And then Mondays were just always tough for me. Monday, I found myself doing more of like a catch-up day. Now, I know some counselors like to prepare for their week over the weekend. Maybe they spend Sunday as like a planning day. So it's really just up to you. That's why I said know yourself. But for me, I knew that Mondays I was already a little overwhelmed and flustered anyways, and class lessons weren't my strong suit, so I wasn't going to do those on Mondays. I'll do more groups and individuals and save my class lessons for when I feel, better. And also, a lot of times holidays are on Mondays. School holidays often fall on Mondays. You have like Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day. All of those holidays are on Mondays, so you may end up rescheduling your class lessons a lot. If someone says, oh, I want every Monday at 10 a.m., well, maybe only half the Mondays are actually going to work out. So I just said, oh, I'm going to eliminate Mondays because I was scrambling to plan my lessons, and I know myself, and Mondays aren't going to work for me. So think about it. Again, it doesn't have to be a full day of the week. It could be the time of day that you're delivering the lessons. And again, put in those buffers when you do your schedule so you don't have to scramble to plan. So you can have time before the lesson to plan and to prep your materials. Maybe you need to print stuff or cut stuff. And then you go to the lounge to print stuff and you get caught in a conversation with someone. Just allow some wiggle room time there. And then after some time to kind of like pack up the materials and get ready before the next thing. I used to have everything back-to-back scheduled, 30-minute class lesson, then a 30-minute group, and then a 30-minute individual. Like, try to schedule in some buffers there. Believe me, I doubt you're going to be twiddling your thumbs thinking, what can I do right now? There is always something to be done, as you know, as school counselors. Okay, y'all, I hope you found that helpful. Those were 4 mistakes I made when I was teaching classroom counseling lessons. Like I said, I have learned so much since then and have established some really great systems that I want to share with you. So don't forget, tonight is my free live masterclass, 3 mistakes counselors make in the classroom and what to do instead. So if you're looking for ways to boost student engagement, improve your classroom management skills, and measure your lessons' effectiveness, you do not want to miss this. Like I said, it's free and starts tonight. So sign up now at stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/mistakes. I'm also doing one tomorrow if today doesn't work for you. You don't want to miss this. Like I said, head to the link in the show notes or go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/mistakes to sign up. Okay, I'll see you there.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.